Welcome back to another episode of the Trial Attorneys. I would just like to say before we begin, apparently I haven't been doing this enough. I have to remind everybody to subscribe on YouTube, click the button, click like on the other social media platforms, that TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. So today we want to talk about a chilling and deeply sort of puzzling case. It is the murder or bizarre killing of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson in Manhattan. Now, this happened recently, just on December 4th of 2024. It just happened, and it's baffling as it is tragic, I would say. The details about the suspect's actions, the knowledge of Thompson's movements, and just even the conflicting reports about what has occurred really, I think, has captured the minds of many people in this country because the entire incident, entire surrounding circumstances are bizarre. So I guess we can start, Ricky, with, we'll talk about the background here and who Brian Thompson was. From all accounts, CEO of UnitedHealthcare and a pivotal figure in the healthcare industry. In our dealings in the courtrooms, what do you know about the perception of the healthcare industry?
Well, back in the day, I'm telling my age again, healthcare was about healthcare, but a lot of people view it as they don't care about health; they care about profits. I mean, we've gotten to the point, and a lot of people are angry. I've seen a lot of people sending messages that, unfortunately, a lot of people are not sad about his killing because they complain that people die every day because they're being denied care, and people pay lots and lots of money denying so-called pre-existing conditions. Right. Like me, I'm an asthmatic. Right. And they don't want to care. I even had one person say they may even deny paying the cost of child care because pregnancy and being a woman is a pre-existing condition. I recall that the last quarter, not a year, UnitedHealthcare made profits of $8 billion. So, of course, everyone's sympathetic to a person who's been murdered, but then the other people think there's a larger issue about the healthcare system.
There is. You're absolutely right. Of course, the United States is a leading country in gross domestic product, and in regards to a capitalist society, one of the leading countries in the world. But many would say our healthcare system lags behind other similarly situated countries, in that healthcare can be difficult to obtain. Until the last 10 years or so, if you didn't have a job that provided healthcare and you didn't qualify for some sort of state funded healthcare, you couldn't even get healthcare. But in this country, it's a struggle that's been going on for years.
It's called profit.
Profit.
How does a aspirin cost $10?
Wow. It is a question and a struggle that's going to continue on probably. So Brian Thompson, he was in New York for an annual investor meeting. Okay, so he's there as a CEO, and on December 4th of this year at 6:45 a.m., he's outside of the New York Hilton Midtown Hotel. Okay, so the suspect approached Thompson from behind and shot him multiple times with a firearm. And even in that firing, it seemed to be a malfunction between shots. Now, I know just from knowing you all this time, Ricky, you're very knowledgeable about guns and the workings and what's going on there.
Military history, yes.
So what does it tell you that, first of all, the suspect knew where Thompson was? And then secondly, what kind of gun would malfunction between fires like that?
Well, as people already know, both of us were prosecutors for a long time, and we're also defense attorneys, so we know both sides. One thing is, and we always talk about motive, opportunity, and means. You know, how this guy is able to know this was about 6:30, 6:45 in the morning.
Yes.
Okay. The conference is supposed to start at 8.
Yes.
So there's a narrow window of time to catch this guy. So either he was stalking this guy or somehow he knew when he was going to be there.
Right.
I mean, look at John F. Kennedy, the assassination. They publicized the route, the time, so he has the opportunity. But this is a little bit different. And people made comments that, they call him either an assassin. I don't think he's an assassin.
It's not. He's not an assassin, no.
I mean, it's just one famous comedian said that Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy were assassinated.
Yes.
But Tupac and Biggie,
they were shot.
They were just shot.
Yes. Right.
If you're in Afghanistan and you're in Iraq and your M4 and your M60 jams, you're trained to automatically fix the jam, correct it.
Right.
So because you had to do that doesn't mean that you're incompetent.
Right.
I think the fact that he's on the street near a hotel, his ability, despite to fix the jam, I don't think necessarily means that he's some knucklehead. They say that the weapon he used was a veterinarian gun.
What does that mean?
A veterinarian gun, veterinarians, what they do is if an animal like a cow or a dog is either sick or wounded, to put it out of its misery, they use a veterinarian gun.
Gotcha.
And also, it comes with a silencer.
Oh.
See, it comes with a silencer because if you're on a farm
Yeah.
and you hit the other cattle, if you use a gun, it's
Scary.
very loud.
Right.
And it may disturb the other cows. So this comes with the gun.
Wow.
However, a lot of people don't know that this veterinary gun, because if that's an assassin gun, there's a whole bunch of veterinarians who are closet assassins.
Right.
This particular gun is patterned after what was called the well rod. The well rod was a gun with they call it a suppressor, a silencer, that was used by British intelligence during World War II. The intelligence, which was called special operations executive,
Right.
they would infiltrate agents into Europe, like France. It was patterned exactly like that gun. The mechanisms are exactly the same. And these agents, if you look at the gun, you can tell. When I first saw it, I said, that's a silencer.
Right.
And it's mainly two parts. Well, it's more parts, but you have visually, there's the barrel and the silencer, and then there's the grip and the handle. Right. And then what the agents would do, they would just unscrew it, and guess what they would do? They would take the tube and put it on the bottom of a bicycle.
Really?
You know why?
Why?
Because the Germans, first of all, nobody's going to have a gun in plain sight.
Right.
2, it looked like a bicycle tube.
Wow. That's
So, I mean, it's the same type of, it's not fully automatic. You know, you press the trigger and the gun keeps firing until you release the trigger. It's not semi-automatic. You press the trigger once, a round discharges, and then you press the trigger again. This is a manual gun where you have to, if you pull the bolt, if it's not loaded, you load. You fire, you pull the bolt again, the cartridge ejects itself. Right. So this guy, he walked up to him, and despite this malfunction, he was able to fix it.
Yeah.
So, you know, like in Chicago, we have what's called spot shotter.
Yes.
And I guess if it's suppressed, I don't know if New York has it, that it's not going to alert a shot spotter.
That is also
And
true.
another thing I did learn that they said, this is at about 6:30, 6:45.
Yes.
What's the significance of 6:30, 6:45? That's when the New York Police Department changes shifts.
Oh, my goodness.
So there's not a lot of officers on the street.
This is becoming more and more like this was very meticulously planned. Because the other fact that really, you know, this is not something that you would, I've ever seen in any of my years, the shell casings were inscribed with the words deny, defend, and depose.
Do you know the significance of those 3 words?
It seems as though those are, well, it's the title of a book that's similarly titled. but it's a strategy of insurance companies. And that's what the book was about. In essence, talking about how insurance companies, if you file a claim, you file the claim and they want to deny your claim. And then if you have the audacity to take them to court and sue them, they're gonna drag it out. They're gonna drag you through court. Which is a lot of strategies. A lot of times, non-attorneys, they talk about this, but it does happen. It's happened to me before in civil cases where a larger firm, because we're solo practitioners, so we're a smaller firm. And a lot of times I've gone against humongous law firms. And one of the obvious strategies is to constantly inundate you with emails, constantly inundate you with correspondence, inundate you with thousands and thousands of pages of discovery that has nothing to do with anything.
Okay. And what's that called? Delay.
Yeah.
Delay.
Delay. And you're hoping that you deny everything and just keep delaying and hoping that the other side runs out of time or money. And then with the depose, of course we do in civil cases is depositions. And
what are depositions?
So a deposition is, which is different from in a criminal case. In a civil case, before you go to trial, we get the opportunity to question witnesses, experts, plaintiffs, anyone can be questioned.
Under oath?
Under oath. They're still under oath. And they come into a room like this. I've done many depositions in here. They come in, and then I can ask the other side questions. I can ask them questions. In a federal case, I can question someone for up to 7 hours. And more often than not, people get questioned for 7 hours.
So what's the purpose of having someone testify under oath? What do you use that for?
So the purpose is you want to see what their testimony is gonna be before trial. Okay. You want to see what they're gonna say, if they actually get up there to trial. You're trying to catch them in lies. Mm-hmm. You're trying to impeach them. In essence, you're getting a heads up about what's gonna happen if they testify in trial. But more often than not, I find it's a strategy where, for me, it's opportunity to see the character of a witness, to see what kind of person they are, to see if they are viable, or if they're a good witness or a bad witness, or anything to that effect. And more often than not, it's a battle of attrition in that I've noticed that after someone's getting questioned for 3-4 hours, they start to wear down. And a lot of times...
Sounds like torture.
Almost. It is. And that's why attorneys, we have to have this large amount of stamina and concentration just to be able to focus in on one person for 7 hours and question them straight. Mm-hmm. Question them about, particular issue.
And still be able to do that if the person being deposed is being rude, mm-hmm. or doesn't want to answer the question, or attacks you. Yeah.
I've been involved in depositions where it's gotten very heated. I've been threatened physically.
No, not you.
I've been threatened physically.
I think I threatened you a couple times.
Probably, I think so. During depositions, people get up, they run out,
wow.
They cry, so they can get pretty intense. But that's where they're talking about with the depose part, just depose as many people as possible, and just delay the process still. So it leads again to, we're talking about motive and opportunity in sorts. Clearly this suspect wanted to leave a message. So let's talk about what we know so far in the investigation. So the initial description was a white male, 6'1", wearing a light brown or cream-colored hooded jacket, dark pants, and black sneakers with white soles. And then later, reports varied on the jacket color. Maybe it was due to lighting or improper surveillance. Okay, so conflicting descriptions. How does that happen?
Human nature.
Mm-hmm.
You could see two people. Honestly, if we during our experience, you can have 5 people, and you might get 5 slightly different characteristics. One may say, "Oh, he's 5'7". Other may say he's 6 feet. Mm-hmm. The weight may be off. The hair color. It's part of human nature, especially if something happens quickly If you've never seen this person before, as we know in cases, identification is extremely important. Sometimes there's an issue about race.
Yeah.
You know, can, for example, a white person clearly identify a black person? That's just part of human nature. And if you've seen the person before, the identification is stronger, more believable. If you've never seen them before and it's under circumstances like someone being shot and you're panicking and you're running, that could affect your ability to identify, including the clothing. And like you said, lighting is 6:30 in the morning. Or it could just been another person who was in the area at the time.
Yeah. So we both know that human identification is historically wrong. More often than not, identification is made by people, and it's been proven. There have been so many cases that have been overturned and convictions vacated because years later people come back and then they're honest, right? It's and when I say honest, what happens is a lot of times, especially in our cases, is that someone has a vague idea of maybe how someone looks or what they were. The police, they put people in front, they put pictures in front of the person. And something we can do in some of our cases is a motion to suppress identification. And what that is that we can go into court and say, okay, judge, the police are putting these different pictures in front of someone, but the process, the way they went about it was just wrong. You know, there's something wrong about the process, and we can argue that. A lot of times in these, what you call a photo race, there might be 6 photos, they show it to the person and say, okay, is the perpetrator in these photos? We know that a lot of times those 6 photos, those people look nothing alike. And usually one person stands out from the rest.
Exactly.
Which is usually the suspect. And what I find, because when I get to the point, is cross-cultural identification. It's almost impossible. People may say, oh, you know, you're general. No, it's almost impossible. I just spent recently arguing the difference between what a short fade was in court because the judge didn't understand what a fade was. Of course, we understand what.
Yeah, or braids versus twists.
Yes, right.
They're like, huh?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Right, locks, you know, or locks, twists.
Yeah,
any of those things. Any of those differences, and even a hairstyle.
It
is a huge difference in identification, especially cross-culturally. If someone says, oh, he had a twist, but the person had a short fade, that's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
It's a big difference. And that happens. And sometimes I think judges try to brush it off. Oh, no, it's a big difference.
And I always say, it's okay to say, I don't understand.
Yes. Yes.
Or could you explain that? But a lot of them are hesitant to, and that just makes you a better judge.
Right.
You know, could you explain that to me? Exactly.
So what's happening now too with I've been seeing there have been a lot of different theories in regards to the clothing. There was an initial, in the video where the shooting occurred, he seems to have on a dark colored top. But there's another video where he's inside of a hostel talking to employee at the hostel. That's when he pulls his mask down, the only time his mask is down. And he seems to have on a different type jacket with these prominent pockets on the front. But, I mean, that could mean many things, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get real quick. I'm going to get back to the identification. Mm-hmm. What always bothered me when we looked at a lot of these police reports where identification is an issue, in the police report, they had the boilerplate, you know, they say, oh, he's male, black, about 6 feet tall, dark clothing. He fits the description. That's not a fit of a description.
No, you just described.
You may have some traits of the potential shooter, but they always say fit the description.
Right. Yeah, I know, and it really goes back to it. You know, I think a lot of times people have problems with skin color. You know, as opposed to light skin, brown skin, dark skin. You know, there's so many different characteristics you can describe. You know, nose shape, facial hair, lip shape, ears. You know, any of these things that people just aren't gonna notice can be able to distinguish. So a couple things can be happening with the clothing here. First of all, the offender could have just changed clothes.
Exactly.
And that's a simple explanation. or of course the more devious explanations that it's just they're different people.
They're different people, exactly.
They're different people, because we
Maybe
don't.
the second person fit the description.
There you go. Could be, very much so. So what that's going to do is, if someone is eventually arrested for this case, that's going to be something that a good defense attorney is going to be able to argue in court. Now, in the video, you see there's a woman nearby who's standing there, and she's not, attacked or bothered at all. But there hasn't been any information. I'm sure they talked to her, but the likelihood of her being able to make identification of this person, I think, is low.
Okay. One, she's probably never seen this guy before. Two, if she saw him, the opportunity to observe his face, one, it was the hoodie to cover. Even if it wasn't covered, a matter of seconds, are you going to be able to describe the person's eye color? Look how early in the morning it is.
Right.
Complexion, some people are pale, some people are olive.
Right.
And also when people see something dangerous, especially a shooting or even hear a shooting, the natural reaction is to turn away or to flee. So her opportunity to observe and identify the perpetrator approaches zero to me. Right.
And I think a lot of times, this is what can make figuring out a case difficult for law enforcement. I think a lot of times we watch too much television. A lot of people see things on television. And I think even jurors have these thoughts in mind. Well, if the police arrested someone, then, they must have done something. But more often than not, law enforcement, they just get the wrong people.
Well, and that's true because, it got so bad where the police were required to tell a person who looked at a photo lineup or physical lineup, they have to inform them that we're not saying that person is in the lineup.
Because what really baffles me about all this is to do this at 6:45 in the morning in the middle of Manhattan. And I've been to New York. It's a busy. It seems like it's always people.
It's always people. Exactly.
Walking up and down the street. There's always cameras. There's always so much around.
I got a question. This guy is the head of a multi-billion-dollar industry. No security. He don't have any bodyguards.
No. Yeah. So that
plot thickens.
Right.
Come on.
It does. It does. Well,
if I win the lottery for $1 million, I got me some big dudes.
Yeah. I'm thinking he's probably thinking no one knows who I am. I'm just rich, but I'm not famous. I think CEOs are now going to start, probably paying more attention and maybe having security with them now. But before that, I don't think he really thought he needed it, probably. So who knows if he was offered security? And then what's going to happen too is their headquarters is in Minnesota. Even though it's a huge corporation, they would have to have someone who, if they worked in Minnesota, they would also have to be licensed to carry in New York, or they have to get separate security in New York. And I don't know how involved, they get with these things when they're traveling. So the suspect, he was seen loitering around the hotel before the attack. He fled northbound on foot, and then I believe he was on a bike.
Well, that's planning right there. He had a scooter.
Yeah.
So he pre-stocked his getaway. He had it nearby. So that means he had to know that because they said they were supposed to have this meeting at 8 o'clock.
Right.
He's going there around 6:30, 6:45. So this guy is waiting nearby. So that means he has the opportunity. It's like his plan. And the getaway, I was going to say vehicle, moped or whatever, this scooter, is right there.
Right.
It'd been funny if he'd went there and someone stole his bike.
That would have put a wrench in the plans there, for sure. I think this also really shows or really proves how difficult it can be to find someone. Because there's a lot of information that's been coming out, and maybe all the information isn't coming. They're keeping some of it close to the vest, try to help with the investigation.
Well, with a high-profile person like that, I don't think they want to leak too much.
Right.
And then you don't want the perpetrator to be aware of what they know about you. So you may attempt to it may help assist you in trying to get away if you find out what their investigation is, where their investigation is, and what evidence they have.
Because a lot of times, in most cases, where we have, and that's why I think it's difficult for prosecutors to prove cases, because you got to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And a lot of times, there's no physical evidence. What do I mean by physical evidence?
Literally something you can physically touch and see: a gun, a knife, a bloody handkerchief.
In this case, so what we have the shell casings that were inscribed, and then reports.
I think they found a cell phone too.
Well, he was. They said they saw him talking on a cell phone right before the attack. Okay. Right before that, but the other thing they found, reports were saying that some people saw him going to Central Park, and they believe he dropped his backpack.
Backpack, exactly. So
they did find that backpack near Central Park's carousel. They also found a water bottle, and you're right, they did find a cell phone. Mm-hmm. Now, okay, so we have this physical evidence, which DNA is, of course, much more reliable than, say, fingerprints, right? So a lot of times people think, with the shell cases, maybe we get fingerprints from the shell cases, but they're so small.
Yeah.
It's hard to get a reliable fingerprint from the shell casing. But even if you do get fingerprints or DNA, the important thing to remember is if this person's never had their information enter into any system anywhere, there's not going to be a match.
Yeah. What if it's never? Some people have never been fingerprinted.
Yep. So if you've never been fingerprinted or never had to give your DNA for anything,
that's happened with some serial killers. Mm-hmm. They never had submitted a DNA. They never went to prison, right. Or if they went to prison, submitting DNA wasn't required at the time.
Right. So even if they're able to get DNA from the water bottle, or if they're able to find fingerprints from the shell casings, which I would think probably not. If this person took the time to inscribe words on shell casings, I'm sure that person also took time to wear gloves while they were doing it.
Yeah, they thought that one through. Yeah. Another thing that with a gun like that, clearly the rounds are not coming out at a high velocity.
Right.
Because with all the gases and the heat and I don't think there's any rifling in the inside. Because for those words to still be on it, if a projectile comes out of a gun at low blast, it's going to cause more damage.
Right.
Versus if it's coming out at 2,000 feet per square, it can almost go through you.
Right.
So that's the perfect weapon for, like a .22 Derringer. They call it a gut gun. I mean, it's going to cause damage, but you got to be right up on it. But
would this person have to have excellent aim, or would it matter where he was shot if he wanted to?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? I did think about that. I'm like, if your intent was to kill him,
right.
I think you would have walked up and shot him twice in the head.
Right. Exactly.
They talk about a double shot.
Right.
But what he did, if your intent was to hurt this guy and let you know, now I got you, mm-hmm. you shoot towards center mass. Right. But that may not necessarily kill you, because a lot of times you see special operations, they'll do a double tap because they know if I shoot you, you're dead.
Right.
Because there have been guys who've been shot 26 times and survive.
Exactly. Wow. Like I said earlier, what really baffled me about all this, how did this suspect know so much? How did he know, where Thompson was what hotel he's gonna be at, what time he was gonna be there, that he was gonna be alone, that he wasn't gonna be with a colleague. How did he know all these things to be able to attack at that time?
Well, that's why the Secret Service, they always change routes.
Right.
Humans are creatures of habit. Mm-hmm. They take the same way to work. They take the same way home. Mm-hmm. They'll put on one sock, one shoe, or they put on a sock, shoe. Mm-hmm. So I heard some information that this guy was known for always wanting to be there early. Mm. So some people come. I'm not trying to be too early, but which is a pattern.
Right.
If I'm a type of person who always come in at 5 minutes before, that's a pattern.
Right.
If I come in an hour before, that's a pattern. So, I mean, I don't know whether his what he does was publicized. Probably not, unless you have that inside information, an employee or know somebody's employee.
Yeah.
But the window, we go back to motive and opportunity. How did he was able to define the time and opportunity to shoot this guy?
Right. Yeah. So, right. It would. I think there should probably the corporation should probably do some internal investigation to figure out if someone did leak information about where Thompson was going to be, about his schedule. Because I just think that's difficult for you to ascertain. I mean, maybe the suspect followed Thompson at some point.
Well, one, if you know he's going to be there, and I'm quite sure if you every time you walk into a hotel, they may have that chart saying, you know, the Procter & Gamble conference,
Right.
8 to 9. Look over here in Caterpillar Tractor conference. So you can, a little investigation, you can narrow it down.
That's true. Or maybe he was able to decipher his schedule through social media, or
You know how people snitch on themselves.
Oh yeah.
It drives me nuts when people on social media, they'll say, I'm at this restaurant and I'm eating it now, and you just told burglars, you're not at home, I'm going to burglarize your house.
Right.
So it's easy, like you said, to social media, to people to snitch on themselves.
Right. Yeah. Or even, you know, some kind of, if you go to the corporation's website, maybe they're announcing this, you know, CEO is going to be here, or CEO is going to be here, or doing this, or speaking at this place. So because of the way technology is nowadays and the way everyone kind of announces what they're doing and where they're going,
And proud of it.
yeah, you could track someone's steps, and maybe he just kind of waited out there and hoped the guy showed up at that particular time.
When somebody's highly motivated, they could track you.
Yeah, yeah. So I think you know this might show some vulnerabilities or expose some vulnerabilities in corporate protection from this point on, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking if you're making hundreds of millions of dollars, that's your salary. Oh, I guess we talked about it. You know, I guess he didn't fear that. Why would anybody be after me?
Yeah.
But from social media, a lot of people say we hate healthcare, and you symbolize healthcare.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because that leads to what we're going to talk about later. Now we brought up earlier his motive, why he did this: defend, deny, depose. So I mean, of course, there are a lot of theories. I guess one, he could have been his family or someone that he knows close to him could have been denied health care in a very, you know, horrible way, meaning that not the normal, well, even the normal way is a horrible way. You know, someone that really needed help and he had to watch someone die because they couldn't get health care.
Oh, my mother has cancer, and you deny certain treatment, and she passed.
Right.
And it may not necessarily that have been the cause of her death, but as long as he believes that that's the cause of the death, that's a motive for him. One, either to go after this CEO specifically, or what he represents. Specifically, I'm gonna shoot this guy because he slept with my wife. That's a specific thing. The other is that he represents a corporation. You know, thousands and thousands of people died because you denied them health care. Or you may have a person who philosophically says, health care is the demon of this country. I'm gonna get rid of them.
Yeah. Another theory is he could have been a disgruntled employee who, you know, large corporations, unfortunately in this country, chew up us normal folk and spit us out on a daily basis. So maybe this was somebody who felt wronged by the corporation.
Or send my job to China somewhere, or layoffs, the economy, and they want to blame him for it.
Or of course, this can always be the age-old, you know, Helen of Troy. You know, this always could be. Maybe this CEO was, messing around with this dude's wife or something, or something along those lines. Yeah.
There's another theory out there. There's two more theories out there.
What's that?
Because I think he was under investigation for some type of insider trading.
Oh, okay.
And I think the Department of Justice was looking at him. And it happens in government a lot of times with politicians when they have the privilege to confidential information. Next thing you know, they go out and they sell off their stock.
Right.
So maybe they like in the mob, and they think you're going to snitch, they'll get rid of you. Never know.
That's true.
Some people are not fit to go to prison. Well, nobody's fit to go to prison, but some people could survive in prison.
Right.
But a guy like that, I doubt it.
Right.
So he may want to protect his, he doesn't want to go to jail, never been to jail. And some people might say, hey, we might as well tie loose ends.
Him and his wife had been separated for some time. Maybe, I'm sure the wife is going to be questioned. Maybe the wife got a hitman. Take him out. He wouldn't finalize the divorce, or
it's finalized now.
Yes. Or he wouldn't pay what he was supposed to pay to have a dispute. So maybe she hired a hitman.
Well, there's another theory out there. Again, going back to this whole thing about the insider trading, possibly going to prison, possibly sending other powerful people to prison, that this was a suicide. He couldn't do it himself.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to pay someone.
Right.
If it's a suicide, his family doesn't get the life insurance. If it's someone else, if he's murdered, they may.
Yeah.
So, it's really, as part of defense attorneys, and you did that on a murder case we did, got a attempt murder case, the state said it happened this way.
Right.
And then you said, well, it could have happened this way, this way, this way. Is other explanations for how it went down.
Right.
And that gave the jury more reason to say reasonable doubt.
Yep. And that's what it always comes down to, reasonable doubt. So, we can get into, the possible charges, of course, first-degree murder. And so, Ricky, what's the difference between first degree and second degree?
Well, I could talk about in the state of Illinois.
Right.
In other states, they may not call it first-degree murder. They may say murder in the third degree, but the elements are still the same.
Right.
That either person knowingly or intentionally or knew there was a high probability what they did would lead to a person's death. Versus second degree murder is that they believe it was self-defense, but that belief was not reasonable.
Right.
If a guy points his finger at you, I'm going to kill you, and then you come out and you shoot him 100 times.
Right.
And you say, I fear for my safety with that finger, and it says, no, that's not reasonable.
Right. Exactly. That makes sense. And so a lot of times, with a lot of the murder cases that we've done over time, there can often be arguments for second degree because more often than not, these things are not premeditated. But this, from the evidence we've seen in this case, I think
it's premeditated.
I think there's evidence of premeditation here, which doesn't usually exist in other types of cases. So
just another example of like second degree murder. When it's like when the husband comes home and he sees his wife in the bed with another man,
right.
and your anger is just sudden. There's no time to think about it.
Yeah.
It involves your intense passion.
Right.
So that mitigates it down. There's no planning involved, basically,
Exactly.
versus a first-degree murder charge.
Exactly. That's going to be, of course, this person's biggest concern. But apparently he also had a fake identification, fake New Jersey driver's license, I think, to use to check
I knew
into the
somebody in
hospital.
Jersey did that.
Yeah.
That goes back to the mob thing.
Right. He had a fake New Jersey license. And then, of course, there's interstate flight. So from him going from state to state, theoretically, they can get the FBI involved.
Federal crime.
So now the FBI is involved, which, of course, is worse for him because now they have immense resources, more resources probably than New York. Even though New York Police Department is a huge police department.
It is huge.
So they probably have a lot of resources as well. But the most serious charge, of course, is going to be that first-degree murder. Now, so the big question becomes here, because we were both former prosecutors and now defense attorneys, we've seen a lot of investigations over the years. What do you think they're doing in regards to steps of investigation right now?
I think they're going to investigate, like you said, they're going to investigate employees. They're going to interview employees. There's the work environment, there's the home environment, and then they're going to try to find potential enemies, people who have motive. Mm-hmm. And that could, a guy like that, he could have a lot. Yeah. And he may not even know it. Mm-hmm. He may not even know it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I think this is going to be a very involved process. What I mean involved, the New York Police Department, they're on high alert. And then with the FBI getting involved, I think if they haven't already, they're probably going to interview hundreds of people. They're gonna interview people in the corporation to see if anyone's had any suspicious communications recently. When I mean suspicious, corporations, they have all of these different ways to communicate within the corporation. They have the little instant messengers. They have their internal emails, and I believe corporations believe that these communications are in fact secure.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, but I think more often than not, arrogance is, of course, the enemy of security. And a lot of these corporations, they believe that their systems are infallible. But for all we know, this guy, this suspect, maybe he hacked their system. Maybe he hacked their system to figure out, get his hands on the CEO's schedule, or got his hands on some emails or something to that effect, and was able to ascertain where he was going to be or what's going on. So maybe someone in the corporation wasn't even involved. Maybe they unknowingly were involved in giving out that information. So they're gonna talk to people in the corporation. They're gonna talk to anybody who was around in that area. Of course, they're gonna try to get together all this physical evidence. But it's gonna be tough to figure out who this guy is. I think ultimately what's gonna happen is, from that one picture they have, somebody's gonna have to call and say, I think I know who this is.
Exactly. And it's almost like the Unabomber. Mm-hmm. He was, they had the FBI, they had state police, they had the locals trying to catch this guy. He was sending these bombs and killing people, executives. And despite all these resources, the way they caught him was when he put out this manifesto. Matter of fact, he was from, I think, Oak Lawn, Illinois. His brother read, and that's how my brother writes. That one thing is what caught him. Not the FBI, but his brother reading it and said, that's how my brother talks. Right. And I think it was Frederick the Great when you said that the arrogance is the weak link because you're too comfortable. I think it was Frederick the Great said that to defend everything is to defend nothing. In other words, you can't be strong everywhere. Right. There is you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot of times what causes the issues. So the corporations believe that they are in fact secure. The corporations believe they don't need, security for the CEOs. They didn't. What society basically works on a daily basis is that we're all supposed to do what we're supposed to do. That's what it's all based on. You do what the rest of society does, and that's the way it works. When people go outside of that, then that's when we have issues like this. I think the guy wants to be caught.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I think he wants to be caught.
Why?
Because if someone like this would go through such meticulous planning in order to commit this crime, why would he put his DNA on a water bottle?
Well, that's assuming they got some DNA.
Yeah, that's assuming they got some DNA.
Or maybe he's not an assassin. Because I think, you can plan something, right, and not be an assassin.
Right.
You can plan something and be an assassin.
Right.
So maybe he planned this, but he doesn't have the assassin IQ.
Could be. But, to leave a water bottle, to take his mask down at any point. Now, when he was if that is the same person.
Or he could just not wear a mask if he wants to get caught.
Yeah. But why take it down at that one portion where, he has to know that there's cameras at the front desk of a hostel. But apparently the reports were that there was a young lady there who was flirting with him. So maybe that clouded his judgment to get his mask down. So you see what I look like.
Human nature.
Yeah, human nature. But the other thing too, if this guy, I think he wants to get caught, he left his book bag, the whole book bag. Why would you just just take it with you? They didn't catch you. What's in the book bag that you would just leave the whole thing? It's not, clearly they didn't find the gun in there. So,
Well, me being the devious person that I am, sometimes if you leave the bag, you can leave something intentionally to divert them to someone else.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's very true. It could really do that. So I mean, this is going to be interesting to see. Cases like this, I think, always challenge law enforcement because more often than not, there's no. I haven't run into a Sherlock Holmes or something to that effect. Of course, I haven't run into that in my career. I don't know. It may exist somewhere, but there just aren't investigators who are just going out making these tiny deductions and coming up with these grand.
Well, you know why?
Why is that?
I mean, New York, they have so many murders. You don't
Yeah.
have time to be that particular on a case.
Right. It's true. It's true. They probably had 10 murders since this one, has happened.
That morning.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Another thing, there are probably a small number of these veterinary guns versus 9mm. We have 400 million guns in this country. How many veterinarian guns do you have?
That's true.
So there's a limit either. I'm assuming since it's a legal product, if it has some type of, there's serial numbers on laptops, cell phones, everything. Mm-hmm. So if this gun has a serial number, unless he defaces it, he scratches it out, that you can find out where it was purchased, who was purchased by. I'm quite sure a veterinarian who really has a weapon and can shoot somebody, there's some extra paperwork involved in
Mm-hmm.
this. So I'm thinking if he's savvy, you deface it. You know what really shocks me? When a guy he shoots somebody and murders the guy, they always keep the gun.
I don't know why that is.
I'm tossing the gun.
Yeah.
They're always caught with the gun on them.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
Or if you're really savvy, says, "Oh, I found a gun."
Yeah. That is an excellent point with the veterinarian angle because there are very few veterinarian schools in the United States. They're very difficult to get into. It's very difficult to become a veterinarian. And I would assume that the number would be even lower of veterinarians that handle, rural veterinarians basically, that handle
Exactly.
cattle and so on.
And think about it. Now these farms are not owned by the Johnson family anymore. It's these large corporations.
It's true. So that even makes it more interesting. What if this person worked at a farm that was somehow owned by this corporation? It's one of their shell companies or something to that effect.
Because they invest in other things.
Yeah. Interesting. I think we may. I think the New York police should call you to consult. I think you just figured it out.
Or give us the reward money.
It's up to $50,000 now, I believe. The reward money. I mean, I don't think it's going to get this far, but could this prompt legislative changes, aimed at protecting executives from targeted
Why?
violence?
What? I think that would be part of the problem,
Right.
that you value the life of wealthy individuals, but there's no big outrage about thousands of people who died because they did not care.
Right.
I mean, they're not a sentimental victim to some people.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is, if you're a billionaire, get your own security.
Yeah.
It's that simple. You pay for it.
Pay for it. You can afford it. And that brings up a very valid point. You know, I'm sure
I mean, I'm hesitant to walk the girl back to her car. I'm like, who's going to walk me back?
There are a lot of families out in the United States and other countries who family members are victim of murder, and they don't feel like the police put in the proper resources and investigation and work in their case. And now this guy said, man, because this guy was a billionaire, that now everyone's jumping through hoops trying to investigate
Okay, and
this
think
case.
about it. I'm quite sure they probably got 900 murders.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, all these resources on those murders are put to the side and put on this murder. How would a family member feel? Y'all haven't, my brother was murdered 3 years ago. All of a sudden, the detectives, now everybody's on this case.
Yep. So, this case is going to continue to unfold. The shooting just occurred. The manhunt is going to be on. The FBI is on this. This guy is really, or maybe, I've seen some reports say that when the mask was down at the hostel, that maybe it was a woman. I don't know. See, there's another assumption we're making, that maybe it's a sexist assumption that only a man can do this.
Well, I mean, if you're smart, you can play on people's racism,
Yep.
bigotry,
Yes.
xenophobia
Exactly.
to your advantage.
Right. And I think cases like this, it can be scary because it really tests the limits of law enforcement. Meaning that and I always say, thank goodness that many smart people are law-abiding people. If someone, I use the term law-abiding loosely, but if really smart people decided to commit crimes, and I'm sure there are really smart people out there committing crimes, I don't know if we would be able to figure it out. Okay. All right. So, interesting case here. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of The Trial Attorneys. Please subscribe if you like what you hear here. Follow us on Spotify. Subscribe on YouTube. Like us on TikTok, Instagram, all those things. Follow us all those places. Appreciate it. Another show. Thanks again, Ricky, and we'll be back.